Hi everyone, welcome to headphone.ph YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest entry in Sennheiser's Studio Pro line, the HD400 Pro. Let's get right into it. A quick disclaimer, Sennheiser sent me the HD400 Pro for review, but my opinion is not influenced by them in any way, shape, or form. The HD400 Pro is their latest addition to their studio line, which is more for monitoring and mixing recordings and audio tracks. The headphone retails for 249 euros, which is equivalent to 282 US dollars, and in Philippine peso, the current conversion costs around 14,000 pesos. It is an open back dynamic driver headphone which utilizes their 120 ohm transducer. Starting off with the packaging, it comes in a no-fuss basic cardboard box which houses the headphone itself and a couple of cables. So it comes with a coiled 3-meter cable and a straight cable, and it also has a 1/4-inch adapter that you can use if you want to plug it through an amplifier. Personally, I would have liked to see a carry case or a pouch, since the headphone itself is going to be often transported by the person who's going to be using it, and a pouch or a case would have been great. I would say this is a typical Sennheiser build, which is good hard plastic, good quality plastic, velour ear pads, velour headband padding, and it has the design elements of the HD560s line, the 580, the 560, which has this single yoke here that holds the cups. The cable is single-sided and detachable, and it has this twist lock mechanism to ensure you don't accidentally tug the cable out of the headphone while using it. Despite the all-plastic build, I really like how the HD400 Pro feels in the hand. The matte black look of the headphone is actually pretty gorgeous, and I quite like it. Despite being utilitarian, this is a very light headphone at less than 300 grams. I think forget what I said about headphones being light at over 400 grams. This one is definitely much lighter than the other full-size headphones that I've been using for the past couple of weeks. As a result, comfort is very good. So the clamp force is not that tight. The velour texture of the pads is very soft and really feels good when it touches your ears. The headband padding is also ample, and this is a headphone that I think most people can wear for an entire day without having any issues. My only minor issue with this probably is that the shallow ear pads, so my ears tend to touch this part here, which is not uncomfortable at all, but it's something that I notice after some time. The HD400 Pro has good sound isolation, especially for an open back headphone. I actually had to double check the specifications because I thought initially this was a closed back headphone. You're not going to get a sealed type of experience for sure, but compared to most of the open headphones, the recent ones that I've tried, I felt like it has some decent noise isolation, as well as just not letting the sound leak as much as other open headphones. Now, for its application, it may not be enough for noisy studios, but if your work environment is similar to an office, then this is more than enough for that purpose. Moving on to the sound, studio headphones tend to have this flat, neutral tonal balance, and the reason for that is that you should be able to hear the music equally from all frequencies, and this allows you to spot any flaws easily because the tuning is completely neutral. The problem is a lot of the studio headphones actually aren't neutral, and the word neutral in itself has many interpretations, and there's a lot of frequency target curves that are available, and at the end of the day, most people have their own preference. And the HD400 Pro has one characteristic that I think stands out compared to other studio headphones, in that it doesn't have an exaggerated treble frequencies. Starting off with the bass, the HD400 Pro has very good bass extension, even better than the HD660s that I also have around the same time this review is made. It has good sub-bass extension. It's not as accentuated as the suggested bass shelf from the Harman target curve, but it's enough for me. And as a result, you get this nice excursive quality that I feel is missing in the 6XX line, the 600, 650, and 660s, because those headphones don't have as good of a bass extension as this one. For dynamics, I would say that it has a pretty decent bass punch. Definitely not as big as Odysseys or Focals, but better than the 6XX line. I am even hearing some slight mid-bass accentuation. It's very slight, especially compared to the other Sennheiser headphones in this line. And that contributes to a very slight warmth going to the lower mid-range. That tonal richness and mid-range forwardness is something that you also get with the HD400 Pro. I would say that the mid-range, the vocals presentation of this headphone is slightly forward, which means that they are more in your face, similar to most of the Sennheiser headphones in this price range. And as a result, you can get that slight honk or nasalness that you can get from like specific tracks that sort of token those frequencies. It can also be a little edgy sounding as it moves into the lower treble. Not as edgy as the 8H M50X from Audio-Technica, but something along those lines. The treble of the HD400 Pro is actually pretty good. It doesn't have any harshness or sibilance. And as I've said, I'm quite thrilled that this headphone doesn't have that same exaggeration of treble that is present, like for example the last studio headphone that I reviewed, the Samson SR850, or most of the Beyerdynamic DP headphones. Like the bass, it also has pretty good extension past the 10 kilohertz where you get some of those air frequencies. It's also not overly done that you have that like haze in the music presentation. And really, I think this is just a little short of the significantly more expensive open headphones that have that smoother treble resolve. The treble here is, while not harsh and sibilant, it's also not as refined as those headphones. But for the application, I think that is more than enough. Moving on to soundstage and imaging, I'd say that the stage of the HD400 Pro is slightly below average than most open headphones provide. It's definitely smaller than the Focal Clear. It is slightly smaller than the HD660s. And I think it has something to do with the forward, middle, and upper mid-range where the presentation is a little more in your face. But again, maybe that's not an issue for this headphone considering most studio headphones are closed. So this isn't really a big flaw of this headphone for the studio applications. Imaging is okay and pretty typical of a headphone for this price tag and purpose. There is a strong center image like most Sennheiser mid-fi headphones. Detail retrieval is pretty good for a headphone of this type. From memory, I think this is better than the Audio-Technica M50X, which has a more uneven frequency response that hinders the detail retrieval capability. The headphone is fairly efficient and can be played plenty loud and pretty decent off a portable device or straight from your laptop. As it is a 120 ohm headphone, it benefits from an amplifier, and I thought it sounded much more tight and controlled and snappier when I used it with the mono-price THX789 compared to just using it unamplified. As a whole, the HD400 Pro is a very capable monitoring headphones. Its strengths include good extension on both ends and a decent frequency response tuning with good overall balance. I personally don't have a lot of experience with studio work, but from memory, this is better than the M50X that I've heard multiple times in the past. Definitely has better tonal balance than the Samson SR850 that I reviewed a couple of months ago, although that one sounded pretty good when EQ'd as well. For casual music listening, I'd say it's pretty decent and okay, but I think there are better options for the price range, especially if you're willing to add a bit more. I'd say the Hi-Fi Man Sundara and the Odyssey LCD1 are better options if you're into casual music listening. Even Sennheiser's very own 6XX line, the 600, 650, 660s, or even the Mass Drop 6XX headphone, also all of them sound better than the 400 Pro. And I think it's because the 400 Pro's biggest strength is also its weakness. It's a neutral headphone, which can be a little on the dull side of things. And it also lacks the smooth resolve and nuance of those headphones that I mentioned. And yes, that is 100% subjective and can differ from person to person. But quite frankly, you probably don't need that for studio use. What you need is a headphone that tells you the flaws of the tracks or your recordings, how balanced it is, something that's comfortable and you can use for long listening sessions, and the HD400 Pro checks a lot of those boxes. So I'd say the HD400 Pro is a recommended headphone for studio applications, especially if you're looking for one that's really not that expensive. It has a neutral frequency response, it's comfortable, it's light, it has good build quality, and really there's not many weakness for this headphone. I think the only weakness is if you're working on a really noisy environment where you need a headphone that attenuates some noise. This one is good for an open headphone, but compared to sealed headphone, it's still not comparable. That's about it for the review of the Sennheiser HD400 Pro. This headphone goes on sale by the time this video becomes available, so make sure to check with your local Sennheiser dealers for the details. If you have any questions, feel free to sound off in the comment section below. Thumbs up the video if you like it, subscribe for more headphone.ph video reviews, and visit headphone.ph for the text version of this review. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.